It's a life, we live it this way. Together we play, we are IMA. From the beginning till the end of this day, we move and we sway, together we stay. We'll take your hand and help you through the mistakes. Whatever it takes, we'll find a brand new place. We'll join our hand in hands and then we'll fly till the end of the time, till our worries will die. We'll do it our way, the IMA way. IMA. It's a dream to be at our best. We fight on our own with no room for rest. It's a dream to be at our best. We fight on our own with no room for rest. And it's a legacy that we want to leave. Make them all believe there will be no great leave. And all the world will follow us on our tracks, turning white from the black, just like raising the flag. We'll do it our way, the IMA way.
Mr. Kabir Bedi, an actor, a philosopher and an author. Mr. Kabir Bedi is a graduate of St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Mr. Kabir Bedi has worked in over 60 Bollywood films. He has played pivotal roles in Columbia Pictures' The Beast of War, as well as in the James Bond film Octopussy. Mr. Kabir Bedi also starred in The Bold and the Beautiful, the second most watched television show in the world, seen by over 1 billion people in 149 countries. The voting member of the prestigious Academy of Motion Picture and Screen Actors Guild, Mr. Kabir Bedi has won numerous film, advertising and popularity awards across Europe and India. The President of the Italian Republic bestowed the title of Cavalier of the Order of Merit of the Italian Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the only international actor from India to have originated from Bollywood. worked in Hollywood and become a star in Europe, Mr. Kabir Bedi.
Chairman and President of the IMA, distinguished professors, teachers, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you firstly for the warmth of your welcome. I'm most touched and I feel happy about being here with all of you today. This International Management Conclave is something that is spreading great awareness, not just management but of Indore itself. And I believe this is like Indore that are the future of India. I feel you can afford Indore, you're from here. You know, it's a very important management conclave, and I'm reminded of the story of an engineer who comes round the bend of a hill and he sees a woman in a hot air balloon suspended about 100 feet above the ground. And the woman shouts down to him and says, "Excuse me, can you help me? I was due to meet a friend about an hour ago, but I'm lost. Can you tell me where I am?" I said, "Madam, you are in a hot air balloon about 100 feet above the ground, 40 degrees latitude north, 60 degrees longitude west." And the lady says, "That's all very well. You might be technically right, but it still doesn't help me. I don't know what to do with the information you've given me. And all this talk of yours has really delayed me." And he says, "You must be in management." She says, "Yes, how did you know?" He said, "Well, you are where you are largely due to a lot of hot air. You don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going. You're exactly in the same position as when I found you, and somehow now it's all my fault." So, management, as we know, is one of the keystones of the economy, the building blocks of the nation, because ultimately it's people who have to do the doing. I'm called here because I suppose I'm known as a famous actor, an international actor. And being an international actor is a very strange thing because I never know who has seen what of my work. Some people have seen my Hindi films, some people have seen the Bond film in which I was with Octopus with Roger Moore. Some people have seen me in The Bold and Beautiful, which is one of the most watched television shows in the world, incidentally. And some people, especially in Europe, have seen my series called Sandokan, which is what made me a star in Europe many, many years ago. But that love and relationship with Italy has continued, and the work that I've done there has mattered enormously to me. And for that I was honored with the title of Cavaliere, which is the equivalent to a knighthood, for which I'm deeply grateful to the Italian government. But like I said, I'm not sure how much of my work you've seen, because actually I've lived outside India for more than 22 years. And even though I came back from time to time, a lot of that work was on American television series, as well as work in Europe, which is largely in Italian. Anyway, the good news is, as far as Sandokan is concerned, I have dubbed the first 6 hours, which is the main story, into Hindi and will be released as a DVD sometime this year. So you'll get a chance to see it, and I hope you take the trouble to buy it. Now that's marketing, direct marketing. You know, even though you know me as an actor, the fact of the matter is I began my career in management. I was the film chief of Lintas, which is one of the biggest advertising agencies, as well as Conclave in Mesa, where I spent 5 years making ad films and being part of the corporate world. A lot of the people that I got to know in those days have now risen to high positions of management, and when I conduct various events around the country, I get to meet them all over again. But there came a point in my life where I had to decide whether I wanted to rise further up the ranks of management or whether I wanted to follow a creative career and make my hobby into my profession. And that's basically what I did. But whether you're a manager or not, whether you're an actor, a plumber, a taxi driver, doesn't matter. Everyone is managing their lives. So they're all, in a sense, managers. Management is not just about corporate management. You know, I think it was Napoleon who said something to the effect of that the greatest battle a human being can win is victory over himself. So, what we do within ourselves to manage within ourselves, management we have to do within ourselves is as important as any function of management we perform outside. You know, try and imagine an architect's arc. Before it's an architect's arc, it is in effect a heap of stones. And not until the architect's vision puts it together and it's all held together with a keystone in the center does it become a proper arc, an arch. That is also similar to life. Because all the stones that are the factors of our life, unless held together by the keystone of a conviction or a vision, just leaves a human being with a bundle of feelings. We are looking at life not just in terms of central beliefs, even the stones that make our life. All those are part of our experiences, and those experiences shape us. And those of us who are fortunate enough to have good experiences benefit from that. Those who have bad experiences have to learn to overcome them. We are the products of our conditioning. Now, for instance, in my case, I first was put in a school in Kashmir, where my parents lived at the time, which was a very early school, but I was surrounded by a lot of Kashmiris and a lot of people who spoke Urdu as well as Kashmiri. Then I came down to Delhi and I was put in a very creative school run by a German lady called Elizabeth Koba, where she was a bit eccentric. I mean, she would promote and demote people in a day, depending on how well they were doing. But she taught me the importance of expressing your creative self. Then I went to Delhi Public School in Delhi. Then I went to Shantiniketan in Bengal, Tagore's great institution of learning, and I was part of the school system there. Then I came and went to Sherwood in Nainital. Then I went to St. Stephen's. And you know, if you take somebody who's come through the whole system of what I call Western education, where everybody wears blazers and polished buttons and polished shoes and stands in lines, etc. And then suddenly you're in Shantiniketan and you're waking up at 5 in the morning to sing Rabindra Sangeet, to eat on the floor, to wear kurta pajama, to have your classes out in the open except for science and chemistry. It does something to you. You realize that there is no single system. All these schools and all their systems of learning are just systems of learning. And the same thing happened in terms of my belief system. My father came from the Sikh tradition because the Bedis are supposed to be descended from Guru Nanak Dev. And I am supposed to be the 17th descendant. So there was a tremendous Sikh tradition in my family. But then my father went on to become a very independent thinking philosopher in his own right. My mother was born a Christian, but she became Buddhist, and in fact went so deep into Buddhism that the last 15 years of her life she spent as a Tibetan Buddhist nun, rising to the highest ranks of Tibetan Buddhism that a woman can rise. And there again I realized, nobody has a monopoly on truth. It's not that anyone's wrong. Different visions were espoused at different times in history by different individuals, all for the social good. And depending on where we are today, we are free to select our own beliefs, to make a fruit salad of beliefs, picking the best fruit of the best trees, and making your own sense of what is. And of course, there is nothing more beautiful than the rituals of religion, which is why I think organized religion is a great place in people's lives. But as far as philosophical belief systems, I believe you need to understand for yourself what resonates for you. And the same is true of your work. Because much as in management you're taught, in every operation, keyword is cooperation. Teamwork is all important. Of course it is. No one denies that. But let us never forget the importance of the individual in the scheme of things. Because it is the individual, ultimately, that produces the leader who makes the difference. And that has been one of the great lessons of my life, which is to say, you can dare to be different. You can dare to be different. A man who conducts the orchestra must learn to turn his back to the crowd. Therefore, if there is to be a leader that makes it different, he has to do things differently. And difference is not just a fashion. I mean, a man like Lee Iacocca said, in business, if you stand still, you get run over. And the need to innovate is paramount. Because if you're standing still, somebody else is moving. And that holds true even in our lives. We are individuals. Each one of us is an experiment in consciousness. Nobody wrote the book on you. How you choose to shape your talents, channel your ambition, develop your goals, contribute to an organization, all that has to come from the individual within you. And I also believe very strongly that it is ideas that transform things. As Victor Hugo said, there is one thing that is more, as Victor Hugo said, there is one thing that is more powerful than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. Where do these ideas come from? These ideas arise within people, within individuals. And to have a creative idea is to make a difference. If everyone conforms, if conformity is the overriding factor, where do leaders come from? Where do people with a different vision make that difference? So while cooperation is necessary, while teamwork is necessary, it's important to find the sources of leadership within you. And I believe a lot of that comes from creativity. Because creativity is universal. I don't care whether you're a banker, whether you're a manager at the highest ranks of multinational, whether you work in the government, whether you work as a shoe polisher on the street. Everybody has a creative self. Somebody sings, somebody paints, somebody writes. There are any number of ways, somebody plays a musical instrument, in which creativity can be expressed. And creativity itself is like a plant. You have to water it. You can't just be a driven executive with a driven agenda, just cutting out all other aspects, because your source of inspiration will dry up. And if you want to keep that creative spirit alive, you must express it in various ways. My father, who was not only a great philosopher in the last 30, 40 years of his life, also a great healer, he believed that blocked creativity is the root of all diseases, except those caused by chemicals. He believed blocked creativity causes all kinds of mental problems, neuroses, and people don't understand what's happening to them because, in a sense, they have developed themselves in a lopsided way, focusing only on left-brain activities, not right-brain activities. So there is a discovery of the self. Who are you? What really makes you tick? Yes, we know you want to be successful, you want to be sexy, you want to get ahead in the world, you want to make lots of money, have lots of power. But none of that will come to you unless you are clear as to who you are and what are your sources of strength and what you can give. No one was ever honored what he received. People are honored for what they give. And whether those honors are promotions, or they are medals, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you contribute. Contribute to yourself first, then to your family, then to your organization, then to the country, then to the world at large. All these factors are important. You are not just residents of Indore, you're citizens of India, you're part of a global village, a village that is intercommunicating. With the rise of social media today, time and distance has collapsed. You can talk in real time to people anywhere in the world. You can gather around people that share your interests wherever they are located. Time and space have collapsed in the world of social media. It has given people forums whereby they can express themselves work-wise, creativity, in all manner of ways. A whole new world is emerging, and as we know, there are 500 people under the age of 21 in India. 500 million people. That's almost twice the population of America. Think of the tsunami that is coming, the jobs that need to be created, the work opportunities that need to be created, the markets that are being created, the consumers that are being created. It is the most exciting time in the history of India. And we are some of the brightest people that can rise to that challenge. And yes, there are things that block them. There always are. But as someone said, one man sees a boulder on the road as an obstacle. Another man sees it as a stepping stone to even greater success. Therefore, there is no challenge that cannot be overcome. But yes, there are obstacles. I just 2 days ago was in Ranchi for the inauguration of India's finest state-of-the-art cricketing stadium that was built in 4 years. And of course, when some individual tries to do this, and that was built with no money from the government. They bought the land, they built the stadium, the Cricket Association. 60 law cases against them, all kinds of things, oppositions. This is one of the things that is truly a national problem. Whenever somebody tries to do something big, all kinds of people want to oppose. But that's where the quality of leadership comes in. If you have that vision, and above all, persistence and perseverance, that's what makes the difference. Some people have enthusiasm for an idea for 30 minutes. Some people have for a day, a week, a month, maybe a year. But those people who have that persistence of vision and that drive to get something done, they are the ones that become the leaders. As Machiavelli said, there is nothing more difficult to begin, more perilous to conduct, more uncertain of success than to take the lead in introducing a new order of things. And yet, no matter what the risks, when the times are changing, when a nation is on the move, when the demographics are changing, a new order of things has to be introduced, whether at the management level, corporate level, political level, social level. A new order of things is coming because India's new generation will demand it, and they will demand it now. As we saw in Delhi, in the aftermath of the Delhi gang rape, how this uprising of new generation India spontaneously erupted, made everyone sit back, made the entire political system react. And that wasn't uprising against a political party. It was against the failure of the state from the time of independence to give us a criminal justice system that worked. And that is what that protest was about. And that is the reaction they're going to get because government will react. Now, nothing changes in a day. But the very process of altering the system, introducing a new order of things has begun. As a result of new generation India rising up in one voice, there is not one police station in the country that has not got the message that you cannot belittle rape. Now, how effectively they act on them, how quickly they change, we'll see. But the message has gone out, and they've heard it. So, what I'm saying to you is, there has to be a driving passion behind every kind of change, whether that change is at the level of management and leadership, whether it is in your social involvement, which must be there, whether it is in building and developing your creative side. All these things demand a commitment to getting it done, because if you sit in a room and stew about the way things should be, they will not change. You know, they say, one man with a backbone is more potent than 1,000 men with a wishbone. So leadership is that. I'm looking at my watch because I was told don't speak more than 15-20 minutes, you've got to ask your questions. So I'm still here. I will be here to answer your questions. But when I see the work the IMA is doing, the conclave that they've arranged, I want to congratulate the IMA on their 50th anniversary too. I'm inspired. It fills me with hope. It gives me reason to feel good about the future of this country, because trained professionals in their fields of endeavor are coming out and extending themselves to give knowledge and experience to young people who are on the way to becoming the next managers and leaders of India. I think they represent for me Thomas Jefferson's great saying, where he said, "We must dream of an aristocracy of achievement arising out of a democracy of opportunity." And I feel that that is the symbol and the spirit of the IMA, whereby they are creating a democracy of opportunity to create an aristocracy of achievement. Thank you.
Before we move on for the Q&A, I would like to introduce to the House once again a different side of Alok Kejriwal by reading out a snippet from his blog, He Says, She Says. She says, "I once went into a lost and found. There were many boxes that looked all the same. They were all empty. He says, you went into the department of love. The empty boxes had hearts that all went missing, never to return." She says, "Then what about the boxes? Why do they still keep them there?" He says, "They serve as coffins for the missing parts. What is love but a living burial anyway? Ladies and gentlemen, Alok Kejriwal. Alok, before I hand over the mic to you to take the Q&A forward with Mr. Kabir Bedi, I have one question as a leftover of the last session. And we were all sitting at the table were wondering, you said that you started your business with 5,000 rupees borrowed from your wife. So some of us here are wondering, have you returned those 5,000 rupees back?
The funny part is that she's a Marwari wife, and what she did was took equity in return for the 5,000. So she's got millions more in return. Unfortunately, equity can never be returned back. So just phenomenal. I mean, such an inspiration to sit here on the same dais with you and kind of hear you. And this was pretty. This is what happens when good things come together. Right energies come together, right people. It was a very pleasant surprise for me to be told that I'm going to be on the same sofa with you. And last night, my first reaction, which is almost a question, is when they told me that we've got Kabir Bedi on. And I said, this guy is the first internationalized, if I may call you, I always think of products. So pardon me for calling you a product. But, our first global, international, well-received, well-recognized export, international, success out of India. And this was way before, we made Hawaiian shirts and made them garment exports, and we polished diamonds and sent them as diamond exports, and even way before we wrote our first source code and created software exports. So as an individual who kind of went beyond the seven seas and braved those, stairs and glares, if I may call them, how did you become such a great global success?
Well, I will take credit for one thing, that I was probably the first Indian actor to go from Bollywood and make a career abroad, because I've spent more than 2 decades outside. When you say global success, I qualify that slightly, because I don't regard myself as a star in Hollywood. I had enormous success in Europe with my Sandokan series, as well as other series that I did with them. And Europe-wide, that made me a star. But, of course, when you succeed in Europe, you think, hey, now I'm going to go to Hollywood, piece of cake. I've done Europe, I'm going to do it in Hollywood. Well, Hollywood is much harder. Because if you try to imagine Hollywood, even today, it's a very local place. In the sense that it's a very tight community that is very inward looking. They regard themselves as 3,000 miles away from any other city of importance, New York being the closest. They don't even know who are the big stars in Europe, who are the big stars in India. At least at that time they didn't. So the biggest problem for me was that I couldn't leverage my European success. At the same time, frankly, they were not writing roles for actors like me. Now, actors need 2 things. You either need somebody to write a role that suits you, and secondly, you need somebody who says, I want you for this role. Now, this was the biggest challenge for me, because even when they wrote roles for Indians, I wasn't the traditional Indian in their mind. They didn't see Indians as being this tall, well-built kind of guy. They had a different vision. So I had to diversify my career to play all kinds of international roles. And even though I say I'm not a big Hollywood star, the fact is I made a success of being a working actor. The industry knew me, the casting people knew me. I was always, every year, doing something or the other. But it is easier somewhat today because boundaries have fallen. But more important than boundaries, Hollywood is concerned about the bottom line. Today, Hollywood says if we take an Indian actor, we have the possibility of a market of 1 billion people. If we take a Chinese actor, we have the possibility of another billion. So they have begun to look in a more global way as opposed to what it was then. But my honest feeling is that the outsider will always be seen as the outsider in Hollywood. And surprisingly, the most successful international actors in Hollywood, whether you go back to Ben Kingsley or Sonia Braga or Rutger Hauer or Omar Sharif or any of these people, they all did films that were successes in their own countries that somehow got noticed in America, which then made them eligible for casting in America. I was trying to do it from the inside. I don't regret that because I didn't know anybody at the time. It was a very enriching experience. I had the joy of working with a lot of good actors. And one of my favorite people is Michael Caine, who I did a film called Ashanti with, and we shot in Italy and Israel. We became a good friend. But the whole experience of living outside India and trying to succeed, it toughens you up. It makes you question your beliefs. It makes you question, am I doing the right thing? Am I wasting my time here? And there is such a thing as coming to the end of a branch. I realized that I was coming to a certain age where it was not serving me to stay out there any further. And so I came back to England and Italy and now India. But my international career continues, both with the Italians, with whom I'm doing a film just now in February. I'm doing a whole stage tour in Canada, or a play called Taj Mahal, based on Shah Jahan's final days. So that goes on. The satisfying thing for me is that after all these decades, I'm still there. I've been a voting member of the Academy for more than 30 years, but the fact of the matter is, in my time, I've seen so many actors come and so many go.
Just that last line, I am still there. And that is such a tall line to say because so many people are not there.
That's true.
And
That's true.
In the entrepreneurial landscape, the business we all come from here, just to keep marching on itself. Sooner the data becomes an achievement in itself. Because if you just don't keep marching on, there's no one to give you orders, no one to see you. But I want to ask, especially for this congregation, a question that we all hide under the covers. We sweep under the carpet. We, lock in the closet. Let me begin by an example, since you mentioned, the fortuitousness of, getting discovered. So all the people, especially the students, would know a British singer called Adele. Now, the funny story with Adele is that when she sang her first album, #1 in the UK, since you mentioned Kingsley and Omar Sharif, #1 in the UK, complete rock star and very, very popular. And Adele's entire production and publicity team took her to the US, and she was a disaster. No one bothered with Adele. To come to your point, they didn't care. They didn't know who she was. And there's a really funny video on YouTube. Someone asked an American, where is Australia? And the guy says, I think it's somewhere in Texas. So I think the knowledge that we have there is not the same we have here.
Same thing happened with Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams was a mega success in England. When he went to America, it was like, but we don't care. He has made inroads since then, but it was a tough haul.
The funny story with this, what I was saying was, and then Adele got invited to Saturday Night Live, and the funny coincidence that happened was Sarah Palin was actually the chief guest, and the entire America tuned in to see Sarah Palin making fun of herself, because that's what she is, and they all discovered Adele, and that's how she became #1. So, long question is, how do you factor fate and luck into success?
Yeah, that's always a good question. Bottom line is, you got to be in it to win it. You got to be in it to win it. If you are not in the field, you won't get that success. I know, from my college days, there are many actors who are much better than me. But they chose other paths. They could have had great success in the industry, but they chose not to be. And also you have to be ready for the moment when your big opportunity comes. Now, what happened, for instance, at the time of Sandokan? I started my Bollywood career. I had done a very successful film actually called Conclave, directed by Raj Khosla with me, both of us. And it became a big success. And at that time, a number of offers came to me. Now, a lot of people want me to do singing, dancing roles. And I have nothing against singing, dancing roles. I think that is one of the great things that Bollywood does. And Bollywood does it better than anybody in the world. But I didn't see myself as a singing, dancing actor. And having realized that, I realized that if I wanted a career as an actor, I would have to push abroad, find outlets abroad where I was not required to sing and dance. As I said, I love watching song and dance. I think it's fantastic. Bollywood's contribution to cinema, but it wasn't for me. So when the Italians came to Bombay looking for a Sandokan, because it had to be an Asian actor, I was ready for the opportunity. I just done a play called Conclave, which was Girish Karnad's play, which was a huge success in Bombay. I had this hit film in Kachindhage. So when they came asking for a tall, bearded, athletic actor, my name was mentioned. I flew to Rome at my own expense to do the screen test and got the role. So it's preparing yourself for your moment of opportunity. Because you know, opportunity, and I want to stress this, opportunity is not something that comes from a brass band, saying, here's an opportunity, here's an opportunity. Opportunity could be something you overhear at a bus stand. Somebody says something which makes you go, oh my God, you do something about it and it changes your life. So as you prepare for that opportunity, prepare to listen to the opportunity as well.
Fantastic. I think I have one question and then we can try and get on the public. You mentioned the fruit salad. That was a nice analogy. The best fruits come together to make a fruit salad. I think in India specifically, Kabir, and I say this actually on behalf of the student community we have here. Being in your own skin, being in your own skin, being yourself. Maybe you're a plum. You're supposed to be a strawberry, but you're a plum. You're supposed to be a plum, but you're actually a banana. But your parents want you to be an apple. And they say, we want you to be an apple. You got to change from being a angur to being an apple. So how does the youth manage conflict between being who they are and meeting the aspirations of their parents, who were themselves subject to probably the same aspiration? And it's crushing. It's just crushing. You can't be somebody you are not. So how dare someone like, I say that with all honesty, how dare parents tell us how to be who we should be?
I'm reminded of a twist on this that was done in a very funny series that was done in England, goodness gracious, with Minasya and Sanjeev Bhaskar and that whole gang. And they have this episode where the son is saying, well, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. And they say, no, you have to be a rock star, you have to be a film star. This is what matters to us. When I began my career, even modeling was not considered respectable. And I was at that time one of India's leading models because I happened to be in advertising and enough people offered me enough money to think about seriously modeling. It wasn't considered respectable to be up on a billboard. Today, it's essential that you try to be on a billboard. So times change. There was a time in the 80s where nobody would come onto a dance floor if Bollywood numbers were playing. By the 90s, they would not get on the dance floor unless a Bollywood number was playing. So, fashions change, things change. Now, coming back to your basic question, You are an individual, nobody wrote the book on you. We're all walking through the forest of life, which is the trackless forest. You can choose to follow certain paths, but as Robert Frost said, two paths diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that made all the difference. Now, remember one thing, whether it is a matter of your marriage, or your profession, or even your hobbies, whatever your parents are saying to you, firstly is coming from a place of love. Secondly, is coming from a place of duty. Shadi kar le beta, shadi kar le beti. It's coming from love, it's coming from duty. They want to make sure you're sort of settled, whether you're ready for it or not. Same thing with your job now. Ultimately, you have to decide what is it that resonates for you. Because you know, when I talk to a lot of young people, often I hear, I just want the best paying job possible. Nothing wrong with that. But is that job something you want to do? Does it, would you wake up in the morning excited about going to work to do that job? Because if you don't think I'll do this job, earn lots of money, then I'll have lots of hobbies. You won't have time for it. You will spend your whole life pursuing a mirage. It is better to settle for satisfaction. It is better to settle for something that fulfills you more, but pays you a little less. Because that is your life. There's no take-two in life. You just have to make the best of every minute you've got. So, let parents say what they say. Don't dislike them for it. They're doing their duty. But let's not forget that ultimately you and you alone are responsible for yourself. You can't say, oh, my parents didn't love me enough, my parents didn't send me to the right school, nobody recommended me for the right job. No. You can say all those things, but don't believe them. You are responsible for you. And you have to make the best of what you got.
For Alok's next question, may I ask the question on a slightly lighter side?
Sure.
Permit me, sir. Which country, apart from India, of course, did you encounter the most beautiful ladies? And the plug is, of course, India.
So many beautiful women, so little time. You know, I've said this even internationally, even in other countries. I find Indian women to be the most beautiful women in the world. I do. Indian women are the most beautiful in the world. But I also believe that the Latin women, the Italians, the Spanish, South Americans also have some extraordinarily beautiful women and vivacious women and spirited women. You can't generalize. Of course, there are such people in America, in Canada, in England, all kinds of things. But in terms of my general overall observation, I think the Latin women are very interesting. But I still hold and have maintained in every country in the world, Indian women are the most.
I think we're trying to open the house for questions, so if you guys have a question, then are there mics around?
Any questions, any thoughts?
Yeah, there are questions.
Any ideas, any suggestions?
Can we have the SMS visual also, so that people can SMS the questions?
Kabir, if I could.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sound like the voice of God suddenly. Babe. Please.
Kabir, take it no less than from the God. My name is Mahesh.
Very nice. Okay, please, yes.
Kabir, since we are talking here of getting future ready, and future can be best judged from the window of the past. Remember the time when you were young. I mean, of course you are young right now as well.
In my spirit.
Right. But remember when you were young in biological age and when you used to go to college, and if you were to live that life once again today, what are the things that you would not do or you would do again?
You know, it's a very good question and I'm going to give a very bad answer. I'm going to give a bad answer because there is no good answer. In life, we all have regrets. If you say my conscience is clear and I don't have any regrets, you've got a very bad memory. There has to be regrets that we all have. And obviously there are things which in retrospect when you think about and say, I wish I'd done that, I wish I'd done it differently, I wish I'd not done this. But that's something that I cannot share. I cannot share because that's a battle within me, that's a learning within me. It's not to put out there and either name and shame people or name and shame myself. If it's something I'm not proud of, why would I publicize it? And if it's something I'm proud of, I don't feel like boasting about it. So, good question, the bad answer, and that's the best I can do on this one.
This is Anubhav Bhale from Kirloskar Brothers Limited. Here I am.
This is what happens when sound and picture don't sync.
Sir, I would like to ask you a wonderful question. It is, after achieving all the goals of your life, which a common human being dreams of, what are the dream and vision of Kabir Bedi individually which inspire you today for your future?
I didn't get the question fully.
Basically, you achieved a lot. As an individual, what are the goals that you set for yourself? I will come on that way.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm grateful for what I achieved. I worked hard for it. I have other things I would like to achieve as well. I would like to continue my work as an actor. I would like to, which I'm going to produce. I'm going to produce a film this year. So that'll be the thing. Some writing I want to do. That also autobiographical plus work on my father's book. So that I'm doing. But above all, I would like to share of myself with my family, with my friends, with a larger audience like you, and share of my experience. But I want to come back to the earlier question, which I said I didn't have an answer to. There's one thing that did strike me. You know, during my college days, due to certain family circumstances, I had to work my way through college. And one of the things that I used to do in those days was work for All India Radio in their external services as well as domestic commentaries. And in fact, I was there in the earliest days of Indian television as well, when it just started, when it had a small radius around Delhi. But one of the things that I did at the time was that I somehow, long story, but somehow managed to interview the Beatles when they came to Delhi. I broke through the barricades and set up around them because everyone was trying to catch up the Beatles, and I got hold of the manager and persuaded him that the government of India would be deeply offended if the Beatles didn't do an interview they had already announced, which was not announced, but I told him so. So I did that interview, and my greatest regret is that I never had any pictures taken of the event. I never had any, the sound recording of the event was erased by All India Radio. I have no record of that moment. But it's something which will live with me, and with the wisdom of hindsight, I should have kept some record of it. I've even tried people that reminded me of All India Radio, like Rajesh Singh and all these people. Please get me recording of that. They said they erased it. So that's a regret, and I would have done that differently. So, this time yes.
My name is Chaitanya Kaleva, and most of the seminars like this, they focus on individual achievement. And everybody must achieve something, but the society is bigger than individuals. And we have many problems, shall we say, in the world at large. The planet is in trouble, as we know. And India shares a big part of it. It is said that the largest number of poor people are in India. And let's see what's the comparison between us and our neighbor China. The fact is, China 30 years ago got one-child policy. And many people don't know or don't want to talk about it, but India's population density is about 2.5 times of China. So the question remains, what should be India's population policy, and how do we actually address the 500 million people who are struggling to meet 2 meals a day?
You know, I'm no sociologist or even economist by profession. But I will say one thing, that even when I was in college, we were saying, what will India do with this population? We had professors that were giving projections that by the turn of the century, India would implode as a country with the number of people it had. That India had no future, population kept expanding at the rate that it did. And we would need to be worried, we would need to be concerned. We said, what can be done about this? And then, if those that either read history or are old enough to remember will know that Sanjay Gandhi tried to implement policy during the emergency, which resulted in the sterilization of certain people in certain villages. And it produced such an enormous backlash that the Congress were voted out of power. So I don't think that kind of draconian measures will succeed in India. I may be going against the tide out here, but I feel that our population is actually an asset. We have exported more than 25 million people from India to other countries, and they are our single biggest source of foreign exchange remittances. The single biggest amount of foreign exchange coming into India comes from the NRI community. The people are not the problem. I feel, just going by my sense of things, that if we can give them the right education, if we can give them the right opportunities, if we give them the right jobs, and in India we have empowerment of boys and girls, men and women, these can be people that drive the future of India to heights we cannot even imagine. Today, after all China's high growth rates, suddenly, for the first time, they're down to 9%, which is the lowest in about 10 years or something. India, more than 9%, we've fallen back to 7%. But the point is, even 7%, hello? America, Europe, all these countries, they're limping along at maybe 2-3%, if that. and we are complaining about 7% growth. So let us not minimize our advantages. Let us not see population as a liability, because and that's why in places like this, the work that the IMA is doing is fundamental. Because if leaders and managers are created to help the transformation of this country into one of the most dynamic economies in the world, population will not be a liability. Population will be an advantage. But we've got to harness human talent in a way that people aren't underutilized or unemployed. Otherwise, with today's young generation coming down in their hundreds of millions, they will not tolerate blockages in that flow. They will want jobs, they will want homes, they will want careers, they will want families, and we have to provide for that. I believe India can, should, and will.
Hello? Yeah. Last question, please. Hello? Hello? Last question from the lady in the front.
Hi, Kabir. You must be used to female admiration, but with the transformation, what about the male admirers now?
About your male admirers.
I'm fortunate to report that I also have male admirers, and I'm just grateful for any admiration I get. You know, I don't divide it into that. I'm just very grateful that people still remember me, that they still like me, that they want to listen to me, they treat me with respect, that the industry gives me opportunities. And if after all these years, I'm still wanted by people, still loved by people, I must have done something right. Therefore, I bow my head in gratitude and say thank you to all. Can I just share one of the...
Sure.
Are you finishing now? Is it time up?
No, please continue.
You know, I just want to talk about perception for 1 minute. You know, we all get caught up in our daily lives. We are concerned, we relate to different things, whether in the real world or the online world or in social situations, and we see ourselves in a certain kind of way. I'm saying to you that there is no limits to how you perceive yourself. If you see yourself in cosmic terms, you'll feel very insignificant. If you try and imagine every grain of sand on every beach in the world, there are more than that many suns in our galaxy, the Milky Way alone. And there are that many more galaxies that make up the universe. So if you think of yourself as an individual in that scheme of things, you feel pretty small. On the other hand, if you see yourself in physical terms, you realize physically, what an amazing battleground exists within our body, where within your stomach, within your gut alone, there are 10 to the power of 10 billion bacteria. We are largely creative assemblies of bacteria, you know, which are enormous in number. And if you look at it from that point of view, you feel mighty. Wow, all these things within me. And then if you think of the human mind, there are universes within that. And the truth of the matter is, what we see in our minds is also largely the result of conditioning. And to unlearn that conditioning is another journey, if you need to. You can be a saint. You can be a murderer. You can be a genius, an academic, a world-beating manager, a murderer or a prostitute. They're all within you. These are choices you made based on aspects of your personality which you choose to put together and say, no, this is me. So, in saying this to you, I'm saying the way you perceive yourself, break out of molds of thinking about yourself. What you're supposed to be, even what you think you are. You are far more than what you think you are. You have far more possibilities within you than you can imagine. You can be far more inspirational than you dare to dream. And if you have the courage to rethink yourself, to rethink your goals, to rethink what makes you happy, satisfied, fulfilled, you can have a whole new life. And if, why am I saying this? I have changed even one life, then this whole year has been worth it for me. Because that life will make the difference to millions. And I urge you, beyond your daily concerns, to see yourself in long shot, in close up, in every way possible, because you are far more than what you can imagine. And dare to dream, because that's what will make all the difference. Thank you.
It's Kabir, is incredible what you just said. My favorite movie of all time is Tarantino's Kill Bill. And there's a very famous scene which I guess a lot of you have seen in the snow garden. It's the last scene of the movie where Uma Thurman is almost going to die, and her opponent tells her, "You are tired and you are wounded. It is still time for you to go." And before she attacks her, she says, "It is not who you are, it is who you think you are." And that is her zone. And she goes into that same zone and then finally manages to kill her. So, I completely resonate. I think we all get, thank you for cementing that fact. One last question from my end, because it's haunting me for a long time. And again, dedicating to the student fraternity, also to the parents here, to all of us. I see specifically in India that we completely resist failure. Fail is actually the four-letter word in our lives. Whereas actually, from the digital space that I come from, we celebrate failure. Because every time you fail, you learn something new. And you're forgiven for it. And there are venture capitalists in .com and mobile who actually today in Silicon Valley saying, how many times have you failed? Because that's a prerequisite for me to give you money. If you haven't failed using someone else's money, then I don't want to give you my money for you to fail. But why don't we accept failure in real life? I mean, why is it such a taboo?
Well, basic fact is that everybody likes to succeed and nobody likes to fail, because failure hurts. I would say one thing: there are times you'll succeed in almost your life, there are times you'll fail, but never take failure personally. Never take failure personally. It's a very sensitive topic you mentioned, because actors have to face a lot of rejection in their time. I remember when I went to Hollywood first, I had to audition for every role that I went to. Forget what you were in Europe, it didn't matter. And you were auditioning either against well-known actors or against newcomers. And sometimes the newcomer got the role. Sometimes the more established actor got the role. And failure hurts. Failure feels bad because it's as though you personally have been rejected. And what I learned from that process was that if I personalize it, I will destroy myself as a human being. I'll be rejected so many times, I'll think of myself as a failure, and that in turn will breed failure. But it is also important to have a vision or a goal that you believe is achievable. I mean, if I at my age say I want to be an astronaut, it might not be an achievable goal. If there is something that you want to achieve, whether it's a career move or a product you want to launch or business you want to launch or even a girlfriend you want to win over, if it's within the realm of reason and if it's something that makes you passionate about that, then go for it. Now, there is this thing that they say, try again. And I buy that up to a point. Because I think there is great value in perseverance. But by the same token I say to you, there is also something as coming to the end of a branch. If you've given it all you had, all you tried for, and you've done it 3-4 times and still doesn't work, move on. Cut your losses. There are worlds to conquer out there. Find other objectives. Don't be trapped. Don't be stubborn. It's your life. Go out there and build something else. And I think you'll find when you look at the business stories of many people, whatever their initial endeavors were, their greatest successes might have ended up elsewhere. And some of the biggest empires have been built on that. I mean, if you look at the story of Bill Gates was not really a programmer. He was running a small company, IBM, who at that time didn't think there was much future for this thing called a personal computer, asked him to go out there and write some code for the system that eventually became MS-DOS. He recommended them to Digital Equipment, DEC, which was a famous company at the time. DEC treated the IBM representatives very rudely. They came back to Bill and said, no, you do it. He walked down the road, he found a fellow, and for $50,000 he made an agreement, got the system that became MS-DOS. And IBM didn't see any value in the personal computer. They let him keep the IP, they let him keep the intellectual property, they let him keep the rights to that. So he could license it to whoever he wanted. And that was the basis of Microsoft. So whatever else Bill Gates had in mind never happened the way he thought it would happen. But when the opportunity came, he took it and he built this mighty company called Microsoft. So failure can lead to success.